present here, and for this one, I'm referring to chairpersons from the regions who are present with us. We have the chairperson, the Tema branch of the GGE, Jifa here. Jifa, you're welcome. We have my chairperson from the Upper East region of the GGE, my own brother William, you're welcome. We have the chairperson of the Eastern region, very close to the capital, also here. The Eastern Corridor, part of the Eastern Corridor. Chairman Mas, you're welcome. Members of the National Media Commission representing the GGE, senior colleagues, gallant men and women from the media, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. On behalf of the National Executive of the Ghana Journalists Association, I wish to welcome you all to the Gifty Afenyi-Dazi Conference Hall of the Ghana International Press Center, and to thank you for honoring our invitation. Colleagues, on 17th February 2025, we updated you and the entire nation on happenings on the media front and how the GGE sought to address them. Today, we are here to update you on some recent development in the media and the response of the GGE to those matters. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in our National Heritage Month. The month is an opportunity for us to reflect on our past, celebrate our present, and build a better future. It is a time to honor our ancestors, our traditions, and our cultural values. A time to promote our own, to eat what we grow, and to grow what we eat. Ladies and gentlemen, the media plays a vital role in shaping our national identity and promoting our cultural diversity. Through our various platforms, let us use the power of the media to reach millions of people by educating and enlightening them about our heritage. It is our duty to promote our heritage. Now, let's move straight to the issues, the agenda, or the reason why we are here this afternoon. Latest attacks against journalists. Ladies and gentlemen, the latest attacks which occurred on 21st February 2025 were against 3 journalists in the Western region. They were brutally assaulted by illegal small-scale miners, into bracket galamsey operators, operating in Breman Adumanya Forest. They are Theophorus Akwesi Ej Enum. They are Theophorus Akwesi Ej Enim of City FM Channel 1 TV, Henry ML Finn of Angel TV, and Jacob Eduba of ABC News / Rock FM. They were covering the extensive destruction of the forest as a result of galamsey activities when the thugs pounced on and brutalized them. In the process, the attackers caused severe bodily harm to the journalist and also damage to their equipment. So, what we are trying to say is that in the process, they were harmed and also their equipment were damaged. This attack is barbaric and we condemn it in no uncertain terms. We understand that one suspect has been arrested and is currently facing trial at Asenkrigwa. Also understand that some money has been lodged with the police in Asenkrigwa covering the cost of the equipment damaged, and that the court has ordered the said money be given to the journalists to replace their damaged equipment and enable them to get back to work. So I'll urge the Western region, is it the Western Central? I know Western region is divided into two. No, I mean the Western region itself. The police has two regions. No, the police has two regions. So I want to encourage the regional commander who has the jurisdiction over Asenkegwa to act immediately to ensure that justice or the perpetrators face the full rigors of the law. The GJ demand full justice for the 3 journalists, and in that regard call for the following. 1. The police and the court must ensure that the suspects in this disturbing act face the full force of the law and that the victims are adequately compensated. The case must be transferred from Asenkegwa to 2nd D, the regional capital, in order to enable the victims to participate in the court proceedings. Given the price of the galamsey operators to cause more harm, it is not advisable for the victims to be going to Asenkegwa for court sittings, and we have directed our members not to put their life risk. We have asked them not to be frequenting the place where their life was in danger. 3. The police in Asenkegwa must find a way of transferring the money lodged with them to the victims without the journalists traveling to Asenkegwa to collect the money, since their safety and security cannot be guaranteed. Ladies and gentlemen, the GJ has observed that the posture of the police in handling attacks on our members, and here we are referring to the media, is not encouraging and does not give hope. We are unhappy about the fact that we have a number of cases that have not been handled to their logical conclusion. And we also have, from our preliminary investigation and from the grounds, that some police officers are accomplices in this menace. In our next presser, we'll speak on our decisions relating to police inaction, relating to attacks on journalists. The next presser will take a bold decision on this subject, on this matter. We may also bring some daring evidence before the public, what we call name and shame. And I hope that we want to use this platform to advise our men and women in uniform who are engaging or who are accomplishing this galamsey menace to start advising themselves and doing what is right. Otherwise, the public will hear of them. The GJ commends the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources for its statement on the attacks on the journalists and its assurance of working to check illegal mining and support for journalists to continue shedding light on the illegal mining activities. We, however, entreat the ministry not to relent on its effort to ending galamsey, as the GJ will be monitoring its actions and inactions towards the fight. Still on galamsey-related issue, the GJ reiterates its position on illegal mining, which it has echoed severally at various platforms, particularly our last GJ Awards at the Accra International Conference Center, and also through the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey, which the GJ is a key member. Ladies and gentlemen, the galamsey menace is still with us. Our forest reserves, water bodies, and farmlands are being destroyed and degraded with reckless abandon, all in the name of gold mining. In the mining communities, law and order are crumbling under the weight of impunity, with associated human rights abuse, adverse and forced possession of individual lands and farms, while the decentralized administrative arms of government and traditional authorities seem to be helpless. We welcome the assurances and commitment of President John Dramani Mahama towards the fight against galamsey, and it is our prayer that he will not relent or give up, but honor his promise of stopping the illegal mining in the country. He can count on the full support of the Ghana Journalists Association and the Media Coalition in ending this life-threatening canker. Mr. President, the time to act is now. The time to act is now. We reiterate our condemnation of all illegal mining activities and demand for urgent steps to be taken to tackle the issues head-on. There should be strict enforcement of all mining laws and regulations without any concessions, as well as the imposition of maximum sentences on offenders. This is a reliable approach to addressing this issue. The GJ urges the media to continue to bring the galamsey issue to the fore until the menace is eliminated. We shouldn't sleep on this. Our generation will suffer. Let's see this as a call. Let's work together to eliminate this menace. And I urge all of you gathered here and all the media, the Inky fraternity must rise up to this task. Now, I know it is not beyond us. Together, we shall win. As indicated in previous press conferences, we will not stop highlighting the issues of galamsey until galamsey stops. Hashtag stop galamsey now. I said hashtag stop galamsey now. Thank you all. Court shut down SOEs community radio station. Colleagues, there is a disturbing development that tends to undermine media freedom in the country and needs to be addressed promptly before it gets out of hand. The Kade District Court, presided over by His Worship, Mr. Emmanuel K. Buedu, granted an interim injunction as party, directing SOEs Community Radio, SOEs Information Center, and Plan Information Center, all situated at Esuom in the Eastern Region, to cease operation until the Environmental Protection Authority, EPA, assesses their noise permissible levels. The plaintiffs are the Krontanyene of Esuom, Nana Buedi Amponim Obodade, the Chidomyene of Esuom, Nana Debo II, and Busuapeni Abosi Eji. Their case is that the operation of the SOEs Community Radio and the two information centers have become nuisance to the community due to the noise they produce, and that excessive noise can lead to neurosis and nervous breakdown. Colleagues, as a law-abiding institution, the Ghana Journalists Association, representing the Inky fraternity in Ghana, respect the decision of the district court, but we strongly, and I want to stress on that, we strongly disagree with the court in granting such a gagging order. This is a serious affront to press freedom. It is our contention that the Kade District Court erred in law in granting the order for interim injunction as party, because it granted the order regardless of the fact that the plaintiffs did not demonstrate to the court that the level of noise pollution generated by the three mediums of mass communication is above the permissible level of noise by regulation. Again, we also disagree with the district court because it ordered a 10-day closure of the community radio station and the 2 information centers, and at the same time directed the EPA to assess their permissible noise level. The question is, colleagues, how will the EPA, the Environmental Protection Authority, assess their noise level when they are not in operation? This is the question for the gods. Indeed, we believe the court did not carefully consider the grounds for the interim injunction before granting sale. In that conviction, we have urged the management of the community radio station to take legal steps to quash the interim injunction. Colleagues, some few days ago, one of the plaintiffs in this matter was heard on tape threatening to get the Minister of Communication to revoke the license of Eswani Community Radio Station, even if the court injunction expires or is quashed. We believe that in an adversarial justice system like we have in Ghana, and considering the parties in the matter, the court should have put the defendant on notice in the worst case scenario. The GJ does not see the urgency in this case. That leads to the granting of the interim injunction. The guarantee of freedom for the media is one of the cornerstones of the Republican Constitution, and that any attempt to deny such a fundamental freedom should be a source of worry to every democracy-loving citizen. Note that Article 162(3) provides that there shall be no impediment to the establishment of private press or media, and in particular there shall be no law requiring any person to obtain a license as a prerequisite to the establishment or operation of a newspaper, journal, or other media for mass communication or information. Colleagues, from the narrative above, we are convinced that the decision of the lower court offends the letter and spirit of the supreme laws of the country, the Constitution 1992. And I take that again. From the narrative above, we are convinced that the decision of the lower court offends the letter and spirit of the supreme laws of Ghana, the Constitution, the 1992 Constitution. At this juncture, we respectfully call on the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana to take particular interest in this case because it has the tendency to undermine trust and confidence in the judiciary, as well as freedom of expression in the media or for the media. We intend to petition the Chief Justice accordingly. And we believe that our Mother Chief Justice take keen interest in this matter. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to commend the National Security Coordinator, Mr. Abdul Razak Osman, for showing commitment toward the safety of journalists and to bring an end to this galamsey menace by cracking down on galamsey kingpins as well as thugs who take the laws into their hands by causing harm to journalists working to protect our environment. I must say that the GJ's recent engagement with the coordinator is reassuring in our effort to end attacks on journalists and the fight against galamsey. I want to assure the new National Security Coordinator of our full support, cooperation, collaboration in this fight. Together, like I said, we win. World Press Freedom Day 2025. Colleagues, last year, we brought innovation into the commemoration of World Press Freedom Day by organizing the annual ceremony in Koforidua, the Eastern Regional Capital. It was the first time in recent memory that the national commemoration of World Press Freedom Day was held in the regions. I wish to inform you that this year we will put through yet another innovation in the commemoration of the World Press Freedom Day. In that regard, we have decided to use the occasion to honor distinguished individuals and institutions that have championed and supported the cause of the GJA in particular and the media industry in general. So instead of the usual daytime activity to mark the occasion, which is climaxed by hosting of the flag, which we all know, this time around it will be an evening event with the highlight being the honorary awards to deserving individuals and institutions. So the highlight of this year's World Press Freedom Day will be an honorary award to deserving individuals and institutions. The event is scheduled for 2nd May 2025, and we believe this format will add great impetus to the commemoration of World Press Freedom Day in Ghana. 4th African Media Convention. 4th African Media Convention. Colleagues, you may recall that last year, Ghana hosted the 3rd African Media Convention, AMC, which brought together key players in the media industry from across Africa and beyond. The Accra Convention has been touted as the best since the inception of the AMC. This year, the 4th AMC will take place in Marrakesh, Morocco, from May 29th to 31st, 2025. This annual gathering of media practitioners, policymakers, academics, and stakeholders across the continent provide critical platform to discuss and shape the future of the media in Africa. We hope Marrakesh will build on the huge success chalked up in Accra. We encourage media institutions to endeavor to participate in such international activity. And let me say that the Accra one has since been adjudged the best so far since the inception of the conference. Issues of national concern. Colleagues, in line with our commitment to use our periodic news conferences and updates to address at least one national issue we deem critical today, we turn our attention to the absence of street lights on the major roads across the country. Movement on our roads at night has become a threat to life. Apart from leading to accidents on our roads, including knockdown of pedestrians, the absence of street light also fuels criminal activities, especially in quiet areas. We respectfully call on the Department of Urban Roads and Ghana Highway Authority, as well as other relevant authorities, to fix the street light in order to save lives and bring back night life in our major cities. This will help in achieving the President's reset agenda and also ensure that the 24-hour economy works effectively. Fix our street lights now. Or fix our street lights now. Thank you, colleagues, for your kind attention. Long live press freedom in Ghana. Long live GJA. Long live Ghana. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, President. Another round of applause for him. Thank you very much. As has been succinctly put by the President, we need our streets to be illuminated. We need to see we need to eliminate crime, and we need the lights to be on the street. So it's hashtag fix our street lights now. And also the hashtag stop galamsey now. And we also do know that the media will be gathering in Morocco, Marrakesh, Morocco, sometime in May, I believe between the 29th to 31st. World Press Freedom Day is going to be an evening to honor the people who continue to support freedom of expression in Ghana, institutions as well as individuals. It will be an evening ceremony, a departure from the usual daytime and flag hoisting ceremony. Of course, the issue in Eswom, Eastern region, where a radio station or stations have been shut down, is a cause for concern and an affront to freedom of expression.
Right, so you've been watching a news conference from the International Press Center by the Ghana Journalists Association on a number of issues, including the upcoming World Press Freedom Day and, of course, the GJA's take on some national matters that they deem necessary to highlight attention. Now, this is the Pulse here on Joy News. My name is Elton Bro. We are live on DSTV, on our social media platforms, on X Spaces, on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course on myjoyonline.com. And of course, some other stories we are dealing with this afternoon here on the Pulse. We are looking at the minorities' official response to the budget statement presented to Parliament on Tuesday by the Finance Minister, Dr. Kade Atofosem. Of course, we will also be taking you to Parliament, where the Foreign Affairs Minister has been justifying government decision to reduce the cost of passport from 500 Ghana cedis to 300 Ghana cedis. We'll bring you the reason why it has come down, as according to the, Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzato Ablakwa, and some other stories making news this afternoon. These are our things in this afternoon as we bring you the Pulse on Joy News. In the studio, we'll have a former finance minister, now advisor on the economy at the presidency, Mr. Septepe. He is my guest as we look at the budget of 2025, the minorities' response to it, some new development that is happening right now in the country, especially in Parliament, where the Finance Minister, Dr. Atofosem, is already before the House, laying some documents that will seek to amend some laws on taxation passed to give meaning to the repeal on certain laws. And we're talking about the e-levy and some other issues. But let me bring in the minorities' official response to the presentation of the 2025 budget by the Finance Minister. This morning in Parliament, the former Finance Minister, Dr. Mahama Adam, took Ghanaians through what they describe as deception by the NDC in the presentation of the 2025 budget. We can listen in to what transpired, and I'll bring in Mr. Septepe for some response.
With our Eurobond holders, with our bilateral official creditors, from the debt restructuring we did, with our Eurobond holders, with our bilateral official creditors, bringing us outright cancellation of almost 4 billion of our debts. Outright cancellation of almost 4 billion of the debts we owe them. And then $7.5 billion of debt service relief. If you put all of them together, you are talking about 12 billion United States dollars that the MPP government negotiated and got these reliefs for Ghana. But this is also tied to the IMF program. So breaching an IMF program means that you go back to the status quo before the debt restructuring. Are they aware of that? I believe they have been briefed, but they've ignored good advice. Do they even know that when all this happened, Ghana will be brought back to unsustainable debt levels and occasion an economic crisis? How will they fund the programs outlined in the budget then? How about investor credibility? On the 2025 fiscal framework, Another baseless revelation in the budget is the projection of a sudden reduction in the commitment primary deficit from 3.9% of GDP in 2024 to a sudden primary surplus of 1.5% of GDP in 2025. I wish it were that simple to adjust by 5.4 percentage points between 1 year.
Well, let me also bring in a former Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Abena Osayas. I was also the Member of Parliament for Etiwa East. She also took, Ghanaians through what she described as inconsistencies in the figures, brought forth by the Finance Minister during the presentation of the budget.
Ghana's policy and reform efforts under the IMF-supported program have continued to deliver encouraging results. Following acute economical and financial pressures in 2022, the fund-supported project has provided a credible anchor for the government to adjust macroeconomic policies and launch comprehensive reforms to restore macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability, while laying the foundation for higher and more inclusive growth. These efforts are paying off, with the growth recovering rapidly, inflation declining, although at a slow pace, and the fiscal and external positions further improving. End of the quotes. So clearly, we have laid a solid foundation for this government to operate. And so it is very disingenuous for them to create an impression as though we have bequeathed an economy full of problems. Let's come to the revenue numbers they showed in the 2025 budget. In 2025, the real growth of total revenue and grants, as we see in pages 132 of the budget and pages 134 of the budget, is just 0.2 percentage points. The former minister made mention of the 24-hour economy, and so I will skip that. But let me say that when you compare our expenditures in 2024, when we had an election, usually with elections, the government spends so much because they have to give the Electoral Commission everything that they will need to conduct a free and fair election. So when you look at the appropriation for 2024, clearly with an election that was fully funded by government alone, the appropriation was 250 billion Ghana cedis. Here we are, NEC telling us that they want to cut waste, reduce, rationalize expenditure, and reduce the waste in the system. They are giving us an expenditure, an appropriation of 291 billion Ghana cedis. 291 billion Ghana cedis. No election. We are cutting down. So they say one thing, and the numbers in the budget speaks to something completely different. That also boils down to the credibility of the budget.
Also at the news conference was the minority spokesperson on the economy and member of parliament for Fuasia Yurebi, Kojo Ponkroma. He's also been raising issues about the budgets presented in parliament on Tuesday.
I just therefore want to demonstrate to you how the priorities of the government will not answer some of the most important questions people have on their minds. Before the budget, many of you did what we call vox pop. You went on the streets and asked people, what do you want to see as the economic result or the economic end of this revenue and borrowing and expenditure that the government is going to do? You will recall that a number of issues were raised by many Ghanaian youth and small businesses. They were expecting that this new economic policy 2025 will address, among other things, cost of living challenges. That it will address, among other things, unemployment. That it will address investment in infrastructure. That it will address investment in education and efforts to improve the business climate, investment in healthcare, among others. Unfortunately, these issues have not been addressed by the economic policy. The priorities are elsewhere. For those who are looking forward to efforts to halt further increases in electricity bills, they have been disappointed to note that electricity prices will rather be adjusted every quarter. The minister referred to it as the quarterly adjustment of utility tariffs. Every 3 months, light bills will go up. Now, this quarterly adjustment with no policy intervention from the NDC government will mean, as I mentioned, an increase in electricity tariffs every 3 months. Worse is that the government clandestinely removed the subsidies on gas that is made available to the IPPs. Remember, because government was subsidizing, the pricing was at about $7.8 per MMBTU. If you listen to the minister in the budget, he says gas prices have been increased. Why on earth would the government increase gas prices? He hid the fact. The fact is that government, the NDC government, has withdrawn the subsidy. And that is why the price has gone up now to $8.4 per MMBTU. This gas is what is used by the IPPs to produce power, and then they'll pass on the cost to us. So in effect, two things are happening. It's a double whammy. Not only are electricity prices going to go up every 3 months, it will be going up at a higher rate from now. So there's no hope when it comes to the reset of energy pricing.
Right, so that's the minority. This is your take on the 2025 budget statement presented to Parliament by the Finance Minister, Dr. Kisiel Atofors. Now, the Finance Minister is back in Parliament. We'll take you back there soon when we have the feed, because he's put before the House some amendments to some, tax measures passed by governments in a move to, to cancel some of them. There's electronic transfer levy, the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, the Revenue Administration Amendment Bill 2025. There's a Special Import Levy Amendment Bill 2025. There's the Emission Levy Bill 2025 to be repealed. And of course, there is also the Income Tax Amendment Bill 2025, Growth and Sustainability Levy, and the Earmark Funds Capping and Realignment Amendment Bill 2025. So these are the tax measures that the Finance Minister is before Parliament. He's going to lay these papers for the House to take a decision. Hopefully not today, but by the time the budget is passed, some of these tax measures would have gone to amendment, some taken off the books, especially the e-levy and the likes, already contained in the 2025 budget. But the MPP, you heard them say that the budget doesn't offer hope. It doesn't address the basic needs of the Ghanaian, unemployment, and of course the high cost of living in the country. There's also reference the fact that electricity tariff will go up every quarter. In fact, there's a provision in the budget statement that was presented in the House where the Finance Minister talks about the fact that PURC will undertake their usual tariff adjustment quarterly, but by the end of the fourth quarter of 2025, we should expect to see a major tariff adjustment in the country. Mr. Sethepe has been in that office before. He is now at the presidency advising the president on the economy, and I'm privileged to say that I have him in the studio here. Mr. Sethepe, it's indeed a pleasure to have you here in the studio.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon.
Great.
To your viewers and to your listeners, if any of them are listening.
Of course. So first, let me allow you to respond directly to the minority before we deal with the matters that they raised. They say that the budget failed to address key matters that are of concern to the Ghanaian. Employment. First, let me ask, is there a freeze on employment currently as we speak in Ghana?
There's no freeze on employment.
There's a provision in the budget that seems to suggest that there's a freeze on employment.
Under the IMF program and previous IMF programs and the one we inherited with respect to the civil and public services, which are directly on the budget, the provision is to keep, the employment. The employment is based on, establishment levels.
Right.
It's like having your TV section, there's a number. You have your radio section, there's a number. Within TV, there's, I believe that in most cases, you don't employ simply because multimedia is a very favorable within the media space where to work. So the policy is, to replace, right? To replace those who left those who leave for various reasons, right? In order to keep within the establishment, right? If, on the other hand, the economy starts to grow again, right, commensurate with the need to employ, you will employ. You can make a justification.
Right.
Do employ. I don't know if the reference is to the trimming down of the number of ministries.
Because reference has been
But
made to the fact that because you've merged some ministries, you're going to have duplication of duties, especially for those who are...
But there's a contradiction there. You know, because if you take the Ministry of Information, I mean, Honorable Fusukwachi was just explaining this. I believe that you've seen it.
Right.
Right. If the Ministry of Information units have been put together, right, and you transfer, you know, those who were in employment under one unit, you know, the ministry, you know, to the office of president, because Honorable Kwachi's office, you know, not physically per se, you know, his office is in the office of president.
Right.
You don't accuse the president of increasing employment when you are arguing on the one hand that you don't have to reduce, you know, employment. They've not been dismissed, they've not been sacked. But you create the impression that the government was recruiting, you know, new staff in essence of its promise not to increase. So you see where there's a contradiction. Yes.
But the assurance from you this afternoon is that there will not be layoffs, even as certain agencies and ministries have been merged.
No, within the establishment.
There will not be layoffs.
No, we have never done that. And I'm saying that it's a requirement in it. This issue came up in 2016. So they should go back to their own IMF program and say the net freeze. That's what you call the net freeze. You know, which is in consonance with good practice. Right? There's an establishment for the public. What you need to do, right, in addition to the public service, is to create jobs outside.
Absolutely.
And we have the record. So, for example, you know, if you take Terminal 3 infrastructure, you'll agree with me that it's probably, or for a fact, employing more people than Terminal 1 and 2 put together.
That's true.
If you take, you know, the infrastructure in hospitals, completed, E-blocks, completed. You know, when we did the E-blocks, we didn't say that those which we said we were going to suspend, as is being said now of hospitals, where there's no equipment and others. We said those which were, of course, they are going to, you know, it's not just about students, right? You're going to put more teachers in the space.
Right.
You're going to put more other workers in the space, right? If you take Tema Port expansion, which, you know, we did, you know, mind you, they were talking about infrastructure. You will agree with me that the port expansion in Tema, you know, the size of it is probably employing, if not 100%, perhaps 60 or 50%. I don't have the numbers. It's, you know, very intuitively, of what used to be just the old, you know, port. Right? So I could go on,
of course,
you know, gas processing plants, gas pipeline, and all those things that we did. That is one way of creating, you know, jobs. So if they want to know our record, you know, of creating jobs, I think we should go back and look at those infrastructure compared to, you know, the volume of, or the number of infrastructure that was built. And mind you, we are talking about, you know, my last point, we're talking about an administration that had best endowed 3 oil fields compared to 1, right. You know, almost tripling. We're talking about the highest flow, you know, of COVID resources, you know, compared to any crisis that we have had, you know. And so I think this whole thing about as though, you know, the Mahama administration, you know, is on equal footing in its early days with the NPP administration is something which we have to take with a grain of salt.
Of course. The other matter that's also is situated in the broader context of employment is the 24-hour economy program.
Yes.
And the argument from the minority is that it looks nice, but it lacks content. Because we are talking about jobs, and now the budget is
Remember when we said we were sorry to cut it? Remember when we said we were going to create, you know, jobs through infrastructure?
Yes.
Did you remember they said, do you eat infrastructure? You know, so they should just wait. That promise was fulfilled to a substantial extent, even though in 2016 with 1 oil field, crude oil prices dropped, and which is why we had to slow down in the interest of prudent expenditure. So as for our promises, we have 4 years to go. The problem we have now, and I heard talk about, living a nice economy, debt ratios and whatever.
Yes.
We've defaulted. It's as simple as that. This is the only government which has defaulted. It's made Ghanaians default. This is the only government that has made Ghanaians suffer a haircut. Those are the things we want to talk about. It's too early to compare that record to where we are going. And already, we over-reliance on T-bills through the treasury single and other, policy measures that were stopped. You could see, the rate of T-bills, dropping.
Coming down. It is gradually becoming unattractive.
And because government is managing the people's money more effectively, right? By making sure that the money is not left, with banks. Of course, there were some other areas, where, the money would have to be examined and genuinely for, say, SOEs and a few. But generally, the government was not managing its resources. So with the little management that we saw of a policy that was stopped, which is the treasury single account, we'll be able to bring the T-bills down. Now, it's not so much bringing it down as what is the impact, therefore, on the general interest rates and the stability of the city and other. They are related.
Right.
Yes. So I think it's early days.
It's early days.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that for those who want to take advantage of the program, especially the 24-hour program, and if the person is watching us right now, what would be the takeaway? That if I have a business and I want to run 24 hours, what benefit do I stand to gain, especially from the government side? If
you run through the budget, and of course, you remember I would urge that we listen to the sector policies, which the ministers were presenting.
Yes.
Because of
at least for the first time now, the ministers will do that.
Exactly.
It didn't come from them.
Precisely. Yes. So you wouldn't see it. But let me give you 2 examples. To run a 24-hour economy, right, you need, at most, light.
Energy, electricity.
Right. You see the measures the Minister for Energy and Green Resources is already taking, right, to bring this, issue back. The flow of, the flow into the pipelines, again, which would therefore provide, gas, IPPs, would therefore, and the settlement of some of their arrears in order that they can. You can't run a 24-hour economy without light. So don't dissociate those things, with the budget, right? You also know about the capping of the decapping of the this Assembly's Common Fund in particular is what I want to. You know that when you go to district capitals these days, it's all dark. And it's not just about jobs and other things. It's even about crime and other things, right? Part of the resources, part of the use to which those resources are often put is street lighting, and every district capital in particular has one way or the other a night market in what has traditionally been the center, right? So the policy within the energy, I'm urging that you should look at what is being said in the sector. They address 24-hour economies in a what may seem a very regular way before the heavy lifting of 24-hour economy issues that would, require. So you tap the low-hanging fruits, and then, as the minister said, we would plan it properly. You're not going to rush into it and plan the financing as we keep improving this. Outside the, doing self-financing. I mentioned the infrastructure projects that we did. We did many of those projects when we were in an IMF program. It shows that if you have a self-financing policy, you can still build infrastructure within there. So let's look at, my last example. If you want nurses to go to work in a more efficient manner, doctors and the rest, putting dedicated load buses and things at their disposal in the districts, commandeering some, government vehicles that are packed and whatever for their purposes. I'm saying that these things are embedded.
So a comprehensive plan will come.
I'm saying that, yes.
That will detail out every incentive that there are in.
Precisely, but I'm saying also look to the pattern of expenditure of even the budget as we know it traditionally, and you will see some priorities being set, which will meet this requirement.
All right, this is very important, and because we brought in the element of energy, businesses will rely on it to grow. Now, in the budget, I don't know why government, for want of a better word, give us a forewarning that expect tariff to go up. I mean, in time past, at some point, we saw tariff come down. Now, in the budget, it says I even expect a major one in the fourth quarter of 2025. What really is the problem in the energy sector that tariff is being used to cure?
No, you're looking at the trajectory at the moment. Crude oil prices, are, they may be going down, but they go up and down, right? So to pick just the headline, it's a tariff policy. It's a tariff adjustment policy. Of course, you can pick on the fact that because now prices are high, secondly, because you left heavy arrears, and everything, you can pick on the fact that for the current period, it is about increasing tariffs. But not mentioning that because it's an adjustment policy, when the prices go, when the crude oil and gas and other prices go down, we have traditionally, as NDC, reduced, tariffs, as most governments, all the governments have done at the pump.
My concern really, Mr. Tepa, is the fact that, when they talk about tariff, a lot of things went into determining it. The issue of inflation, there's the exchange. The finance minister at the National Economic Dialogue pointed out the fact that ECG is struggling, and he will not burden the citizen with tariff adjustment just to cure the inefficiencies in the system. What are you doing to deal with the inefficiency without necessarily putting it on the shoulders of the consumer?
Before I come to that, I think the question we should be asking, and the opposition raised the issue of IPPs. The question we should be asking is, why was the energy sector debt $2.2 billion US dollars back in 2016 when we left? ESLA was introduced to clear all this amount, and despite ESLA flowing in and showing that we could have cleared this amount in 5 years, why are we still owing $2.2 billion? What happened to ESLA? Did you hear the mention of ESLA in all of this?
Not yet.
And I'm mentioning this because ESLA was set up dedicated to clear this arrears. The debt. Right?
But ESLA also accrued some money.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
ESLA has accrued, if I'm not mistaken, about 40 billion.
40 billion.
Yes.
And yet we still have the debt on our books.
We still have the debt on our books. So you don't come, talking about, impact of gas increases on IPPs. And you should have credit. If you had credit, the situation wouldn't require now that we should be thinking about IPP debt and increasing, various things. By the way, ESLA also had the enhanced road levy. Why? The minister mentioned it. Why are we owing contractors so much when we started paying? And I'm not saying something which we did not start doing. We cleared 500 million Ghana cedis of VRA debt. We renegotiated 2.2 to be paid out of ESLA before we left office. We used about 1 billion, I believe 1.5 billion Ghana cedis or so to start paying contractors.
Right.
This was stopped, and the contractors were given bonds, and the bonds have suffered a haircut. You see, so I think putting history aside, right, and conveniently talking about a tough situation which was created by the same government, is, excuse me to say, a bit unfair, or quite unfair.
Is there a plan to go back to the capital market?
Yes.
The NDC, the MPP says that you are rushing.
Yes. No.
It's early days yet. You need to take your time.
Yes. We need to take our time. No, we don't have to be reckless in doing that. But if the opportunity presents itself for us to go to the capital market, we'll go.
Are we in a position to do so?
Of course, the reforms will show whether we are in a position to do so or not to do so.
Because the door was shut to us because of the way we manage our economy.
Who caused it?
And have we gotten to a state where the economy is in a state where we can assess?
Who caused it? Who caused the shut?
If you want to make a reference, clearly it's the MPP administration that we had this.
Exactly.
When we had this challenge. So I'm saying that have we gotten to a state where the economy?
Are they concerned that they are seeing the signs? If you rely less on T-bills, which is the 90-day bills, what's the next cost? It only means that it's opening the door for you. If you pay pensioners, right? What is due to them, right? which was previously locked. What does it mean? Remember, they went to the domestic bond market, 3 to 5 year bond market, through their pension funds and the banks, right? It was shut to them, right? So the president said, so if we pay this, are we not on course?
Right.
And what prevents us if the opportunity comes, right? For us, and let me put it in context.
Is it happening this year?
No, we have to be very, very, the minister was very careful because there are medium-term measures. You don't do reforms, and just because you have had one success, you go ahead and rush and say, I'm going to. No, we have to, take our time. There will be the mid-year review, as he said, and then the trajectory. But the point I'm making, let me give you an illustration as to why you should go back to the market as soon as possible. I always use households. Suppose your child fell sick, right? And you use, money, even money that you be paying fees, for your other kids and whatever, money that probably you need to pay for the salary advance that you took, right, to buy furniture or whatever, not food, Right. Right. And mind you, I'm talking about no loans that you took from a friend. I'm talking about maybe a salary, which will be paid over 6 months or whatever. It's to give you relief. If for one reason or the other, something happens in the house, right, and you go to the bank and say, oh, I'm sorry. You show them the hospital bills and everything. Can I waive, the payment of the next installment, right? The next installment.
For the loan you are servicing. Because
of the loan which you have to service. And you show them evidence that, I have been paying. You can see that I've been paying for the last 12 months, but, of the 3 years, but this is what has happened. I can show you the prescription. I can show you everything. And the bank manager, allows you, that waiver. Luckily, the child recovers and everything, right? Do you continue defaulting just because you've been given? Don't you go back, to the same market, the longer term, market?
Naturally.
And if you don't do, what happens? The market will shut to you. It's been shut. Or they'll come to your employer and make sure that the payments is reduced. So I'm saying it's the same thing. We've been shut from the market, right? The first time ever that it has happened since we started issuing, bonds on the stock exchange from around 2013, 2014. First time ever, right? And so if we are taking measures which is making it look like, hey, we may not have to continue relying, on the 3-month bill, which is supposed 3 months treasury bill, which is supposed to be paid, which you are using for everything. And there's a window for you. Don't you go for the 3 year, to do infrastructure instead of 3 months to do infrastructure?
I think it makes sense in that direction. What all they are asking for is that you tread cautiously.
That's the direction in which we are going.
Yes,
so they should tell us whether the direction is good or bad. Just as you said, I've explained it. I'm saying that's the direction in which we are going. We are saying that we are going to do take certain actions, and based on those actions, if the condition becomes conducive, we will. And this is something we did before. It was Dr. Dufo who introduced the 3-5 year bonds.
Right.
Right. Primarily because he did not want to use treasury bills to be paying single spine bonds and some of the subsidy, the debt that way. There's a history to this.
Right.
Now, I was a minister who built on that initiative. And it gave a space. But when it was in, I was the minister who took the bonds and put them on the Ghana Stock Exchange. And it made it tradable. Right. We set up the debt repayment account, the sinking fund. It was not applying to only foreign. And we refinanced, some of the money we had used to negotiate with labor, some of the money we had used to, to pay single spine arrears and negotiated with labor to stretch the arrears over a period of time. Right. And the market became quite solid. And you agree with me that we were able to leverage on the fact that we are borrowing for 3 to 5 years, and we are paying gradually to do some of the infrastructure and other things.
The other matter...
Right. Sorry, so I'm landing.
Okay.
So what is it that is wrong we're saying that if the strategy has worked, and in every country, that's why they do 10-year bonds, they do 5-year bonds, and what we're not doing is repaying the principal, which is why we did. Was it on the MBB that came to stop the payment of the principal, which led to a default? And the minister said it, that we have reintroduced a sinking fund, and he gave the balance in it. And we are going to, therefore pay our debt. If we pay down our debt, an opportunity comes for us to buy, just as you need the money to buy furniture, do you take, borrow for 1 week to go and buy, furniture as a household? No.
Okay, the other matter that I'll also be seeking your opinion on is what I describe as localized issues to help turn around the economy. And these are state-owned enterprises that are so much underperforming. The SIGA, President Mahama just this morning held a meeting with SIGA and all chief executives appointed to head our state-owned enterprises. And this matter came up quite strongly. In fact, some of the state-owned enterprises, came up for mention. ECG, Cocoa Board, Ghana Great Company, Gihog Distilleries, even Graphic Communications Group. And so let me take you to Parliament now, because let me bring in the Finance Minister to set the tone. I'll bring in Mr. Franklin Kujo and, of course, Mr. Tepai to help us understand what really is going on in the way forward in dealing with this matter.
Profitability has eluded almost all of them. Mr. President, some specific numbers that we've seen so far indicate, for example, that the Electricity Company of Ghana, for example, has recorded consistent losses from the year 2021. In the year 2021, they made a loss of 1.46 billion Ghana cedis. 2022, 8 billion Ghana cedis. 2023, 5.96 billion Ghana cedis. The Ghana Great Company made a loss of 93.5 million Ghana cedis in 2022, 8.6 million Ghana cedis in 2023. Gihog Distilleries reported a loss of 25.1 million Ghana cedis in 2022 and 25.5 million Ghana cedis in 2023. Mr. President, this one surprises me. Even the alcohol making company, is making losses. Graphic Communication Group also saw a consecutive losses of 3 million Ghana cedis in 2021, 4.4 million Ghana cedis in 2022, and 15.1 million in the year 2023. The Ghana Cocoa Board, the largest loss-making company, also saw 2.4 billion Ghana cedis loss in 2021 and 3.8 billion Ghana cedis in the year 2023. To put these figures in perspective, in the year 2018, only 2 state-owned companies, state-owned enterprises made some profit or paid dividends. Your Excellency, they are the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority and the Ghana Reinsurance Company. To reverse this trend, we must implement a bold turnaround strategy that transforms loss-making state-owned enterprises into financial viability and self-sustaining institutions. The strategy will include capacity-building initiatives to strengthen leadership and operational efficiency. The second will be the enhancement of corporate governance training to ensure strict regulatory compliance in all state-owned enterprises. The third is a financial discipline and strategic decision-making to restore profitability. Your Excellency, I would like to highlight a critical issue facing specific state-owned enterprises. And this has to do with the compliance of the financial reporting obligation. Mr. President, the Public Financial Management Act, Act 2016, Act 921, outlines a clear financial management and reporting requirement for all state-owned enterprises. Section 95 of the Act mandates that state-owned enterprises must prepare annual account no later than 2 months after the end of each financial year. State-owned enterprises must submit audited financial statements to the minister within 4 months after the end of their financial year. Moving forward, the Ministry of Finance will be working closely with SIGA to ensure strict compliance of this regulatory requirement. Your Excellency, I came here with copies of the Public Financial Management Act to distribute to all state-owned enterprise heads. And I expect that Section 95 will be strictly adhered to.
Well, we'll hear from Franklin Kujo shortly, but let's hear from President Mahama, who has a stern warning for chief executive officers of state-owned enterprises.
As I said yesterday, you are among the category of public officers obliged to declare your assets upon assuming office and also upon leaving office. A lot of your predecessors have failed to declare their assets, including ministers and CEOs who have left. And so the Auditor General must follow them and get them to comply. The Director General of SIGA will ensure that you all comply with your assets declarations. The Auditor General will submit a list of those who have complied by an agreed cut-off date, and those who fail to comply would be sanctioned, including possible removal from office. My vision for reform is clear, anchored on performance, accountability, and national interest. Under my leadership, specified entities will be transformed into engines of growth, aligning with our goal of a 24-hour economy that expands job opportunities and drives industrialization. At the center of this transformation is SIGA, which will evolve from a passive observer into an empowered enforcer of national interest. SIGA will act as a command center and be equipped with executive authority to 1, negotiate and enforce performance contracts with heads of entities. 2, conduct regular in-depth assessment of SOE finances, ensuring transparency and exposing mismanagement. 3, issue binding directives, implement compliance mechanisms, and intervene directly in underperforming entities. 4, commission independent audits to identify inefficiencies and financial leakages. And 5, set and monitor performance metrics with tangible consequences for non-performance. Loss-making SOEs will no longer be tolerated. They will be swiftly reformed, they will be merged, privatized, or shut down. Corruption, procurement fraud, and financial mismanagement will be prosecuted strictly, and boards that rubber stamp poor decisions will be replaced. The practice also of, in a few cases, using entity resources and funds to indemnify board members from accountability must cease immediately. SOEs must deliver strategic value, particularly in energy, transport, manufacturing, agriculture, and finance, to support Ghana's industrialization and the 24-hour economy initiative.
And as President John Dramani Mahama, well, it's good time to bring in the president of Imani Africa, Franklin Kujo, who is joining us via Zoom. Mr. Secretary is also with me in the studio. Mr. Kujo, good afternoon and welcome to the Pulse.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. And it's always a pleasure to see you. Now, the thing about the SOEs and the lamentation that we are hearing from the finance minister and the president, the thing is that it's almost same script, different cast. What is permanent in this matter is that this meeting is always held at the Campisi Hotel and enjoy all the finest of the hotel. And yet, every year we come back to report the same thing. What really is the problem here?
Well, one of the things I heard, which I was very elated about, had to do with performance contracts. And for me, I think, well, there have been performance contracts in the past, but let's say the president is saying that there must be some sort of, this one is more like a detailed one, where the CEO of, the SIGA virtually goes into this contract of these heads of these various state SOEs, and then assess them. So that at some point in time, or maybe at the end of the year, these CEOs themselves will realize that, look, they are either performing or not performing at all. And I think a system that works with where you have the agent, in this case being the CEO, and then the principal, in this case being the president himself, or the SIGA boss, actually working together from the get-go, understanding that, look, these are the parameters we need to work with. If after 6 months we don't see we don't see progress, we come back to the drawing table, and then we go back again and then make sure we fix things. This co-creation of what I call a performance-based assessment is much better than handing over what I call the PFM rules, rigid as they are, to these CEOs. Because when Ato said, the Honorable Minister said, well, he's brought copies of the PFM, I burst into laughter here. I said, well, there we go. We've been doing these, what I call rigid, hands down, top command control type of, public financial management, and it's never yielded any results. Past 33 years, it's been the same thing. So if you're doing performance contract, which is a wise thing to do, you actually you introduce some should I say you be a bit more novel,
right?
Making sure that you co-create the entire process from day one, so that everybody understands what they are trying to achieve. And if you fail, then you know that you yourself have failed, and it will be obvious to you that you as a state-owned enterprise, you are failing.
So Frank, is it a case of the public sector sickness? Because, as far as I'm concerned, and from especially some of the conditions of service for some of these CEOs that we are privy to, clearly the state has played its part in terms of giving you very good salary, benefits that is, way beyond the reach of a lot of Ghanaians. We live in a bungalow. Sometimes you look at even the facilities in those bungalows, and you are amazed, and yet they are happy to post losses whilst they drive in SUVs and vehicles that are beyond the reach of a lot of Ghanaians.
So there's a mismatch. In fact, if you watch the Singaporean model of these performance-based contracts, it's the inverse of what you are doing here. They pay their staff well, they pay the public servants well, they deliver results, but there are milestones they've got to achieve, right? Yeah, I don't think we are doing that, which is what we should be asking for. And I'm saying that these CEOs may come into the office and know that there are perks they will have to receive, but they have to earn them. That's what you're trying to say. So how do they earn them? First of all, I suggest that the performance-based contract must be expanded, not just between the appointor and then the appointee. As in this case, the president. In fact, it should be extended from the president, the finance minister should be part of it, and the CEOs of these institutions, so that they understand what they are doing. But then in turn, the CEO also extends this performance-based contract to the entirety of the organization. And maybe every quarter, every month or something, they meet, they assess themselves. And if they're not working well, they go back to the drawing table. These things have worked perfectly in Singapore, and it's worked perfectly in Rwanda as we speak. So I think that, we call it at Iman the stewardship model, right? Because instead of having this command control type of thing, okay, I give you a car, I give you 70,000 a month, deliver results. Using the PFM structure we have right now, it will never work. I think, look, I suspect the best way really is to invest the entire relationship when it comes to the principal and the agent theory, and make sure that both of them are aligned in terms of thought, so that nobody gets the wrong impression that they can come into an office, just get salaries and go away. It doesn't happen in Singapore that way. In fact, the salaries some of these CEOs are enjoying are quite humongous, probably more paid than what exists in even private sector, right? But they are state-owned enterprises. If you are getting those type of sums, you should deliver, which means that the appointer also should not be interfering so much. In fact, the performance-based contract is a really wise concept. And I'm saying that beyond what we know, what the performance contracts are, we should expand them to build trust, build accountability in them, so that it's both ways. It's bi-directional. It's not just one direction. That the president expects accountability from the CEO expects accountability from the workers. It should be bi-directional, it should be both ways. And that's the stewardship model we've been trying to talk about.
But Mr. Tepa, the president's solution, set up or you will be sold or privatized. The finance minister said will ensure capacity building initiatives, stronger corporate governance and strict regulatory compliance and financial discipline and strategic decision making to restore profitability. The old president Akufo-Addo's era and when Asamoah Boateng was the head of SIGA, I heard all of these words. What will be different this time?
I think the minister and then the president was referring to some of these requirements which are now incorporated, in the Public Financial Management, Acts. And I don't think we should dismiss the Acts, and its references. So, for example, if you go to Section 27, it talks about each principal account holder the heading is performance report. Shall within the first quarter of the ensuing year, after the minister submits the annual budget to the parliament, submit to parliament performance report on budget implementation for the proceedings, for preceding
right.
the financial year. And it continues. Let me just say, the performance report shall indicate the achievements of the principal account holder, the annual work plan, which was implemented, the staff establishment of a statement of the actions taken, and goes on to talk about the financial, report. But I think the minister was talking in the context of the arrears losses and others, and that, is a reference to a section of the PFMA, I can't read it now, which, because of the past performance, is required, that's the CEOs, of seek the state-owned enterprises,
right.
seek the approval of the ministry, because some of these debts we're talking about and others have ended up on the balance sheet as contingent liability.
Yes.
So there was to be constraints on the ability to borrow unless they can show, quite clearly, that they have the means, to pay back. And as an illustration, where, just talking a while ago about Terminal 3.
Right.
The loan is not guaranteed by government. That is because working with the airport company, we're able to escrow, that's a self-financing scheme because it's a project.
Yes.
Right. The forex that flowed into the consolidated account for the Minister for Finance as a demonstration of goodwill, and the ones that were retained because it's a tax, right, by the airport company, and this is what was sufficient, to underwrite, if I may put it that way, the building of Terminal 3. That is one efficient way. If you can't pay me dividends, pay for the projects. And we extended that to Ports Authority, the expansion of the ports. We extended, as I said, it originated with the pipelines using, the product that is coming out to service. And we did not have to put this on the public balance sheet. So why did we stop, these things if they worked? That's the point. I think it's about sustainability also.
Sure.
Sustaining, programs and projects that work.
And also, personally, I don't know what you make of this. Also, I don't know to what extent government interference also play in the overall performance of some of these.
Certainly it does. But I can show you that when we started under the homegrown policy, government did not fall on SNIT, the usual culprits, Cocoa Board, GCB, which is partially owned by private, for money to finance the budget. We said, if you want to go and buy, government bonds as part of your investments and whatever, you can go and do that, but we did not go directly, contrary to what used to happen in the past, right? So again, why did we have to stop these practices and others, right? So, yes, with all due respect to, my good friend, Franklin, I think for each government there's something that works.
And you are confident that this time the story will be different?
But we've defaulted simply because we stopped putting, despite 1 oil field to 3 oil fields. We stopped putting the money, the oil money, that was to sustain the bonds that we were issuing, despite the fact that we followed the same path, to take off, the first sovereign bond that His Excellency President Kufuor, right? We took it off, right, by paying about 2/3 of something, and in fact, the irony is that the last 200 million, that was taken off was on October 4th, the 10th anniversary, 2017, by the current administration. Why did we have to? So sometimes a broad brush for all governments, does not bring out the positives. I don't care whether left or right. It's the jewels. They may be scarce, but let us accentuate some of these policies as well, so that governments know that the public is watching.
All right, Mr. Kujo again here, and then first with the issue of government interference. For example, government knew that cocoa board was going down and yet kept increasing the producer price for cocoa. Some would say that it was for political expediency. There's also the issue of Bank of Ghana. If we heard the finance minister's response to the Bank of Ghana demand for some kind of a bailout, going forward, the finance minister's response to Bank of Ghana and the political interference, where we've heard pronouncement that seems to suggest that we'll leave you to do your work, but if you don't bring in results, we'll deal with you. Is that a way to go?
First of all, as we've agreed across, this afternoon, it's clear that the state gives and at the same time tries to take away, right? Sometimes the state itself, the appointor, tries to interfere in these enterprises. And that's the problem. The classic case of the cocoa board, we all know that these cocoa rules are always gamed. They're always, and there's nothing wrong paying cocoa farmers the right price. Anyway, it doesn't matter whether in a year you run your administration down. It doesn't mean that the cocoa farmer should suffer. But they are also listening, they are partakers in the global news, should I call it cycle. So they know exactly what is happening. So you cannot excuse that. I think overridingly, the interference from the top basically has been the problem. And by the way, question is, how do you fix this thing? I was alarmed when the former governor of the bank suggested that, well, the Minister of Finance needed the money, and so he just decided to give it anyway without knowing that he also has some powers. And now they're in the red, and they want the finance minister to bankroll them. So there was this arrangement where you scratch my back, I scratch your back. We become poorer for it. I don't think those things help at all. If we strictly want to follow, again, I accept, Honorable Tepe, I agree that the PFM structures are there. I'm not really calling for their replacement. Probably calling for complementing them with this, what I call the performance base or the stewardship model. Because the point really is that the former governor suggested that, look, the country needed money, and so he needed to just support it. But that's his view. Is that the view of everybody else in the government at the time, or even the entire country or parliament, which is supposed to have oversight over these decisions? So it appears that the whole concept of responsibility obviously is thrown to the dogs. And I think I accept that governments will be different, but at the tail end is to, as Honorable Tepe says, look out for the leading lights and accentuate their behavior, which essentially others will have to follow. But to get there, you need to start from a process where all these CEOs subscribe to one big document, a charter. From day one, they agree that these are the milestones for this organization. The charter is published. Everybody in the organization knows about it. They do a bi-weekly or bi-monthly assessment, and they know where they are going. If Cocoa Board were doing that, if all these other state enterprises were doing this type of internal, coercive, co-created assessments and accountability, we will never get close to those sums you hear that have been should I say, probably was
want to come in briefly, and then I can allow you to conclude, Mr. Tepe, you wanted to.
Yeah. I think for the benefit of our audience, I'm not disagreeing at all. With what Franklin is saying. It is good corporate practice. In any event, if a private company is enforcing this through performance reports and the rest, our version of entities, I mean, government, I've been in public sector, our version of entities that are allowed to make profits, and the state-owned enterprises.
Right.
And there's no reason why, simply because what is government ownership, some of the practices that he's talking about should not be implemented. And I think that's what his excellency is also talking about. So I agree with him.
Totally agree with him on that.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Performance criteria.
Let me bring in, as we begin to conclude on this SOE matter, Dr. Daniel Enim, Chief Economist at PIED. Dr. Enim, you've heard Frank from the civil society angle. They look at things broadly without any political lens. You've heard the government advisor on the economy, Mr. Tepe. What for you should be the way out to dealing with these SOEs that are underperforming?
Thank you very much. First, let me salute my seniors on the platform significantly, Honorable Setepe. Congratulations for your appointment. Yes, as much as I agree with all the things outlined by my colleagues, my view is that the genesis should be with the appointment, okay? Managers of the SOEs, because they've been appointed by the president, okay, there's this kind of psychological feeling that, it's a reward that I've received by virtue of the fact that I belong to this political party or have contributed to the success of the party. So my view is that the president should have...
And indeed, Dr. Enim, some actually push and lobby for certain state-owned enterprises to head. And sometimes you wonder the motivation behind that particular push.
Exactly so. So the way forward is the president maybe outsourcing appointment to a management firm or look, that could even be done by Imanin or even one of the auditing firms. Okay, you outsource. So they appoint, the person goes through the normal process of appointment, and you are able to get the best brain to manage the institution. If you do that, you disconnect that psychological feeling, or so to speak, that political feeling that I've been awarded or rewarded by virtue of my contribution towards the success of the party. That one will be discharged. Then the person will be given, performance indicators, just as it was stated by my own colleagues. So my view is that the genesis have to do with appointment. If we get appointment right, we disconnect that psychological, political affiliation from management. And then number two, appointment of the composition of the board is also another thing. Same could be delegated by a third party to do it on behalf of the president. Then we will know that, look, people have been appointed purely based on merit. That is not to suggest that most of the people that have been appointed, I read some of them, their background, fantastic, very successful thing. But there's this a feeling that, this is our party. And this is not just speculation. If you take the political history, you will realize that government appointment of appointment, at the end of the day, it's only few that are able to do. That is one aspect. And then secondly, there's another issue from the government itself, from the seat of government. That's the political interference. We have seen where state-owned institutions were not allowed. People who even wanted to do things from a purely professional perspective were either taken from, were relieved of their post, reassigned. These are radical situations. Okay, it's just like the dead horse theory. We know the dead is dead, and we are trying to see if we can manage it. Somebody say, if we can give it food, it will be able to work. If they are able to ingest some medicine to work. The reality is that political affiliation is a huge issue. And until we disconnect that political affiliation from the appointment and the management and the running of the institution, and then again, the political interference from the seat of government, my view is that they should be able to work very well. And because the question is that if you are bringing a private person, the question you should ask yourself, what is the private person bringing on board? Is bringing on board sound management, is bringing on board efficiency, is bringing on board accountability and transparency. And that's the reason which a private person will succeed. If you can apply same, my view, respectfully, is that we may not need a private person, yet we can still perform as efficient as any private person that may come on board.
Right.
So that is my position in respect of the performance of the SOEs.
Thank you so much, Dr. Prempeh. Let me allow Mr. Kujo the final words on this matter, to the extent that even an SOE that is into the production of alcoholic beverages, they've sold all the bottles, yet they posted losses.
Well, maybe people bought them on credit and they were not paying. The point really is simple. I mean, as Honorable Tekwe says, look, these are entities that are supposed to be returning profits. As long as they return zero profit, they've got to answer. I mean, they've got to give us reasons why we should maintain them. So yes, I accept what the chief economist Daniel is also saying. I mean, that appointing process is also very important. But at the end of the day, if you've been given a charter, you've been given your mandates, and you have milestones to achieve, I don't know whether they are milestones they want to achieve themselves. I've not seen any of them. I mean, maybe those things exist in each state-owned enterprise, but we'd like to see those things, and the public must know. You see, that's another way of sunshining the process. I think the public should be aware, so that this should be published monthly or twice every month, that this SOE, maybe GIHOC, they want to produce so much and they want to sell to these people. We know exactly how these things are operating. That way, they would also be cautious in managing the affairs well, and not necessarily reporting just one way to SIGA or to the president or to the finance minister.
Gentlemen, I appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you so much, Mr. Kujo, from Imani, of course, Dr. Prempeh. Let me come to the studio as we wrap up on this discussion. First, Mr. Tekwe, Bank of Ghana, they are demanding a bailout of 53 billion. The finance minister's position on this matter is clear. What is your position on what Bank of Ghana is demanding? They supported the government that is running away from supporting it.
Well, I mean, in the interest of disclosure, I cannot say that I disagree with the minister to the extent that
you advises the government on this.
Yeah, no, I was part of the process. Okay. I mean, I joined the team, in the review and formulation of these policies. The policies came to cabinet. I happen to be the privilege of, being there, and so I do not, I don't have any disagreement at all, with what he said. Remember, he qualified as a condition for the government, and he also gave, the things like the assets and projects and others which were, and the offer of a financial, if you like, a financial, market, solution, lease and buyback, and those sort of. So I think he was preferring, options. Right. Remember, this is a bank which, often made profits and actually paid dividends. Yes. In fact, a bank, because of the privileges under the Constitution, we don't tend to see central banks as SOEs, basically. But to the extent that they earn income and they may be non-profits, but they make, good surpluses. Let me use the IFSA's expression instead of profits, surpluses. And they pay dividends to government. So I think the minister has in mind that the bank is capable, of coming back. His main point is that at this point in time, there's such a crunch. We have humps. When we talk about humps, we have debts that were suspended, from 2-3 years ago under the debt arrangements, which are falling due. And so the fiscal itself has serious commitment. Yes. So to the extent that the bank has recovered, is in operation, he is suggesting even the buy and lease back is not like saying buy and leave it completely, because the former administration has explained that the potential of having the ECOWAS bank, in Ghana, moving in Ghana
to be housed in that particular.
That means that's an example. They may lease, or they can buy lease and buy back. If their bank is capable, because it's a continental bank, of underwriting, let's say, a 10-year, facility, right? That would be deducted in lieu of, let's say, the rent that they would have been paying. He's saying that there are these options which will have to be considered ultimately by the Minister of Finance and the Central Bank, and find a solution to the state of the bank, which ironically is the bank that should bail out other banks, but has fallen on hard times. Yeah.
My final question, for those of you who are watching us, the government is enjoying so much goodwill. The budget itself is also enjoying some goodwill. you have 4 years to turn things around, at least, so long as the mandate is concerned. You are resetting Ghana.
The honeymoon will last 4 years.
Of course. And so that's why I'm asking that.
We are painfully aware.
Exactly.
In as much as we have the enormous challenges, the honeymoon still lasts 4 years. Yeah.
And we know that President Mahama has a 4-year mandate. You are mindful of how internal politicking in political parties can sometimes push your programs off guard, where you have people with different ambitions, leaving government, new people coming in, and government may not be focused here and there. In 2028, what story would you be telling Ghanaians? Would you have stabilized the economy side that will be ready for takeoff, or significant changes will happen to the economy side that wouldn't be where we are now?
I just like to, I like records, because when I say the record is verifiable. So I like to avert the minds of Ghanaians to the period between 2015, when we entered into the IMF program, and 2016, some of the vindication that has come, right? If you borrow, you learn to pay. You must keep, your, cut your coat according to, what.
The size of your cloth.
The size, exactly. And as I said earlier, we did things like being able to manage the economy to the extent that, in fact, in 2016, the deficit was 6.1%, percent of GDP, 1.1 percentage points above
the threshold.
Above the threshold of 5%, So I'm saying that, and mind you, that was an election year. We did the most infrastructure, some of which, came into force after we left office. There is nothing that says that, you cannot practice fiscal prudence. My debt was 57, percent, on the new basis and all that. So there's nothing that says that you cannot achieve success. And so there's a precedent. Hopefully that will guide us in terms of the performance of the very leader you're talking about, right? With hindsight and with the vindication about some of the yes, were there things we could have done differently? Perhaps yes. Yes. Experience, as they say,
is it too early to bring in the element of whether we should extend the IMF program?
I think it's too early.
It's too early.
Yeah, I think it's too early, because if we are able, to do some of the measures, and we are fortunate, for example, as the Secretary has said, to bring back some of the investments that left the country, right? Particularly the, oil fields that were ready, to go to blossom, and then they just vanished because of 1 or 2 reasons. Mind you, you are talking about maybe a 1.5 to 2 year horizon, when the correction, just about the time, we may be exiting from the fund program. If we are able to do the same magic as we did, with 1 oil field, and now with maybe 4 or 5, harnessing it all together and repeating that experience, I don't see the reason why we.
But clearly, the responsibility and the challenges ahead are huge.
Program.
But clearly, the responsibility and the challenges ahead are huge.
Tell that to the opposition.
Okay.
Who claim that they left a very good.
We'll leave it here. I've enjoyed this conversation. I don't know about you, but tomorrow, same time, we shall be here to meet another exciting edition of The Pulse. For more stories, log on to our website, myjoyonline.com. LTS will come up after this break. My name is Elton Gobe. Have a good evening.